Welcome to another installment of my video series, Practicing Our Praise, which I'm basing off of scriptures and the book Holy Roar, 7 Words That Will Change the Way You Worship. So if you're tuning in for the first time, let me just give you a little summary of what we've been up to. We've been breaking down some Hebrew words together that translate to praise in English. And we've been looking at how we can adopt some of these ancient worship practices that we read about in the Bible and how we can still use them today. And you know, it's been a fun learning experience so far. I think we've been stretched, maybe challenged a little bit, and maybe we've sparked a sense of wonder in this area of praise that wasn't there before. So I'd encourage you to check out the other videos on our YouTube channel if you haven't already. There's a whole bunch there that you can find. Just click the videos tab and you should be able to find, I think we've done 3 other videos so far. But today, I'd like to focus in on our sense of expectation that we have as humans. I believe it starts as early as childhood, and the first place my mind goes is the expectation that I had as a kid for the Christmas season. I mean, what an exciting time of year. For me, it was all about getting together with family and extended family and gathering around the table and sharing a meal together. My mind always goes to our Christmas Eve candlelight service that we have at Polson. A lot of memories with that. Driving around the neighborhood with Mom and Dad to look at all the colorful Christmas lights on everybody's homes in their neighborhood. Decorating the Christmas tree was always a family tradition, something that we always tried to do together as a family unit. Of course, baking cookies and other treats, and then eating those same treats, of course. Listening to Mom and Dad's old Christmas records, and of course, like any kid, anticipating what might be waiting for me under the tree on Christmas morning. You know, some years my sisters and I would get so worked up with expectation that we would actually make ourselves physically sick just in time for Christmas Day. And some of you with kids might be able to relate, and you might have a similar story as well. But you see, I had built Christmas up so high in my life, and it always felt like I had to wait forever for it to finally arrive. So getting physically sick with expectation is a pretty extreme example, I know. But there are definitely certain feelings and emotions that we can identify in ourselves when we are anticipating something and waiting in expectation. Maybe you are anxiously anticipating your wedding day, or even going to a wedding. Maybe you're expecting the birth of a child. Maybe you're tracking the Instant Pot you just bought on Amazon, and you're looking at Canada Post's website every day, putting in the tracking number to see when it will arrive on your front doorstep. Hey, no judgment, I've been there. You know, I think as humans, we like having something to look forward to, don't we? It sort of provides us with a sense of hope that something good or even great is on the horizon in our lives. So that brings us to our Hebrew word for today, which is toda. And here's the definition. An extension of the hand, thanksgiving, a confession, a sacrifice of praise, thanksgiving for things not yet received, a choir of worshipers. So there's a lot in this definition, so let's kind of break it down piece by piece. The extension of the hand in thanksgiving can help us sort of visually direct our praise upward or heavenward, which is the place where our ultimate hope lies. It kind of gives us focus. The confession part is a way of showing God that we trust Him for the things we have yet to receive. It's praising God with expectation that His promises to us are true. So because toda is a word that expresses thankfulness to God, Darren, the author of Holy Roar, explains that toda was often a word that was expressed by choirs of worshipers. That's how they were raising it up, usually in a corporate gathering of people. So let's dive into the scriptures a little bit. And I'd like to take us to Psalm 50. And in Psalm 50, we find a promise for those who practice Todah. Here's what it says. Those who sacrifice thank offerings, or Todah, honor me, and to the blameless I will show my salvation. So this passage is pretty clear. It's telling us that showing God honor and giving him praise before we experience his promises actually comes before salvation. Interesting. So now I'd like to jump over to Psalm 56, where we find David in a really tough situation. So let me just give you a brief summary. His enemies, the Philistines, are in hot pursuit of David, as it says in verse 1 of this chapter. They want to attack him and ultimately kill him. So in this chapter, David talks about how the Philistines conspire and scheme against him, and they twist his words to try to get him in trouble. Anyway, eventually the Philistines succeed in capturing David, and he's facing a pretty grim future. Things aren't looking good for our buddy David at all. But guess what? Despite his awful circumstances, David says in verses 11 and 12, "In God I trust and am not afraid. What can man do to me? I am under vows to you, my God. I will present my thank offerings, or Todah, to you." David praised the Lord and held on to God's promise that he would deliver him. Even in prison, David praised God with expectation. When we practice Todah, we are believing that God will do what he says he will do. It's praise that requires trust and surrender. So, believing that God will put an end to sickness and disease and death and ultimately bring healing. Believing that war and violence that we see in our world today will eventually come to an end. Believing that he has the power to release us from bondage, whether it's pornography or alcohol or selfish greed or a spirit of bitter anger. Sin and darkness will not live forever, but God will remain faithful forever. And we can read about that promise in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 9, which says, "Know therefore that the Lord your God is God, the faithful God who keeps covenant and steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations." Todah is praising God for being our provider and giving us all that we need each day. In Psalm 20, verse 7, David declares, "Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God." Have you ever come across a person who always seems to remain calm and steadfast and secure in their faith despite horrible circumstance that they might be going through? I have. And those people are an inspiration to me. And those people make me realize just how weak I can be sometimes in my faith. My default can be to worry and stew about things when things are going badly or not going my way. And Darren, the author of Holy Roar, he suggests that we move our worry to worship. Because we can exhaust so much energy focusing on circumstances that are just out of our control. But the essence of Todah is turning our attention to God, who is already in control, and believing that he will respond when we cry out to him. Maybe you need to raise Todah for a broken marriage, or for a child who has chosen a different path in life. Maybe you need to raise Todah to God for guidance and direction for a job opportunity, or maybe for a career that hasn't really panned out the way that you expected. Could a fuller expression of praise start with an expression of faith for salvation not yet received? Clinging to his promises can give us the assurance that greater things are yet to come. And it's going to be my prayer for all of us that we start to tap into this sense of expectation when we enter into worship. And I think we might be amazed at the blessings that God is wanting and waiting to pour out on us when we enter his presence with a thankful, expectant heart. So if you're looking for some recommendations for songs that express Toda, I'd recommend I Lift My Hands by Chris Tomlin, I See a Victory by Elevation Worship. And if you're looking for more of a classic, Come Thou Long Expected Jesus by Charles Wesley is another great one. Have a great week, everyone.